Let me start with something that almost no one says out loud about themselves, even though they recognize it immediately when they hear it. Some people feel everything. Every shift in the room, every change in someone's tone, every unspoken tension that most people walk past without noticing. They feel it all, the joy, the grief, the weight of other people's unspoken pain, the particular sadness of a Sunday evening, the way a conversation ended slightly wrong even though nobody else seemed to notice. They feel it deeply, fully, in a way that is not dramatic and not performed, but simply constant. A continuous, rich, sometimes overwhelming inner experience that runs beneath the surface of every ordinary day. And they say almost none of it. Not because they have nothing to say. They have more to say than most people will ever know. Not because they do not trust language. Many of them love language deeply, are drawn to it, find in words a precision that ordinary conversation rarely offers. Not because they are cold or distant or uninterested in connection. They want connection more than almost anything. They are drawn toward it with the particular hunger of someone who has felt deeply alone for a very long time while being surrounded by people who had no idea. They say nothing because somewhere along the way they learned that saying it, bringing the interior outward, making the felt thing visible, was not safe, or not worth it, or would not be understood, or would be too much, or would change something that felt fragile, or would require a kind of vulnerability that had been tried before and had not ended well. And so the feeling stays inside, rich, full, unshared. And the person moves through the world appearing calm, appearing fine, appearing perhaps quieter than average, but fundamentally okay, while inside something vast and complicated and deeply alive is running continuously, finding no outlet, making no sound. From the outside, people who feel everything but say nothing are often experienced as calm, as steady, as the quiet, reliable presence in any room who listens more than they speak and seems, somehow, always to understand. People are drawn to them precisely because of this quality, the sense that here is someone who truly listens, who is truly present, who will not fill the silence with noise. But from the inside, the experience is entirely different. From the inside, it feels less like calm and more like containment, less like steadiness and more like the continuous effort of holding something large and alive in a space that was not designed for it, less like peace and more like the particular exhaustion of someone who has been managing their own interior for so long and so quietly that they have almost forgotten what it would feel like to put it down. Most people who feel everything but say nothing did not arrive at this pattern by accident. They arrived at it through learning, through discovering, at an age when such discoveries leave permanent marks, that their emotional experience was somehow more than the environment around them could hold. That when they expressed what they felt, fully, honestly, in the natural way of a child who has not yet learned to manage their own interior, the response was not always what they needed. Sometimes it was dismissal. Sometimes it was being told they were too sensitive, too dramatic, too much. Sometimes it was the quiet but unmistakable withdrawal of warmth from someone who found the fullness of their feeling uncomfortable or inconvenient. And so they learned to edit, to translate the felt experience into something smaller and safer before bringing it out, to present the acceptable version of what was happening inside rather than the actual version. And over time, the editing became so practiced, so automatic, so thoroughly built into how they moved through every interaction that it stopped feeling like editing at all. It simply felt like how they were. One of the central psychological patterns behind this is something called Alexithymia-adjacent processing. Not the clinical condition of alexithymia, which involves genuine difficulty identifying emotions, but something related and different. The ability to feel with great intensity and precision, combined with a learned difficulty or reluctance to translate that feeling into language that can be shared. These individuals know exactly what they feel. Often they know it with a clarity and specificity that most people never develop. They can identify the precise texture of a feeling, the exact way it sits in the body, the specific shade of sadness or anxiety or longing that a given moment produces. The feeling is not the problem. The bridge between the feeling and the speaking of it, that is where something broke or was never built, or was built and then deliberately dismantled because the cost of using it was too high. There is also something that happens to people who feel everything, but say nothing, that rarely gets named and deserves to be. They become extraordinarily good at holding other people's emotional experiences. Because they cannot express their own, they become the container for everyone else's. The one people come to when they need to be heard. The one who absorbs the room's emotional weather without complaint. The one who understands without being told, who is present without being asked, who gives the kind of quiet, attentive witness that most people rarely receive from anyone. This is genuinely beautiful, and it is also, beneath the beauty, a pattern that costs something significant. Because the giving of that kind of presence, the holding of other people's emotional worlds while carefully containing their own, requires a sustained expenditure of emotional energy that is almost never replenished. Because the replenishment would require the person to allow someone else to hold their experience the way they hold everyone else's. And that, being held, being witnessed, being the one whose feeling takes up space in the room, is exactly what they learned not to do. There is also a particular relationship that people who feel everything but say nothing tend to have with words themselves. Many of them are deeply articulate. They read widely, think carefully, have a rich and precise inner vocabulary for their own experience. They are often the people who, alone with a journal or a page or the privacy of their own mind, can say exactly what they mean with a clarity that surprises even them. But in conversation, in the live, unedited, unpredictable space of a real interaction with another person, something stops. The feeling that was so clear and precise in private becomes difficult to locate. The words that were available in solitude are suddenly unavailable in company. And what comes out instead is the edited version, the fine, the I'm okay, the something softer and smaller and safer than what was actually there. This gap between the private, articulate self and the public, quiet one is one of the most disorienting experiences these people carry. Because they are not inarticulate, they are not without feeling or language or the desire to be known. They are simply someone for whom the distance between the interior and the spoken word contains a history, a collection of moments in which the crossing of that distance did not go well, and that history sits in the gap, like a door that keeps closing before they reach it. There is also something important to understand about what it costs to feel everything and say nothing over a sustained period of time. It does not stay neutral. The feelings that are not expressed do not simply wait politely in the interior until a better moment arrives. They accumulate, they layer, they find other ways to move through the system, through the body, through dreams, through a low-grade exhaustion that has no identifiable source, through a periodic collapse into sadness or withdrawal that seems to arrive without warning, but is actually the inevitable result of a system that has been carrying too much for too long without any release. People who feel everything but say nothing often describe a particular kind of loneliness that is difficult to explain to anyone who has not experienced it. Not the loneliness of being alone, not even the loneliness of being misunderstood, but the loneliness of being fully present in every room and fully invisible in every room simultaneously. of giving something real and receiving something surface, of being known for the quiet and the steadiness and the listening, and never for the vast interior that makes all of that possible. There is also a grief inside this pattern. A grief for all the conversations that never happened, for all the moments when something true was felt and the opportunity to say it passed because the moment felt wrong, or the person seemed busy, or the vulnerability required felt like too large a risk for what might be too small a return. For all the relationships that stayed at a certain depth, warm, genuine, real in their way, but never reached the place where the actual person lived. For all the times someone asked, "How are you?" and received "fine," when the true answer would have taken an hour and involved things that had no simple language and might have changed everything between them. And beneath that grief, something quieter and more foundational. The accumulated cost of years of translating the interior into something presentable. The tiredness of the editing. The strange hollowness that comes from being genuinely, deeply, continuously present in your own emotional life and simultaneously absent from every conversation about it. The path forward for people who carry this pattern is not about learning to perform emotional openness. It is not about forcing expression or filling silences or making themselves speak before they are ready. It is about something much gentler and much more specific than any of those things. It is about finding one person, one relationship, one context at a time, the conditions in which the crossing of that distance feels possible, in which the door that keeps closing stays open long enough for something true to come through, in which the felt thing can be spoken not because it has been made smaller and safer first, but in its actual size, at its actual weight, with its actual texture intact. That moment, the first time something is said in its real form and received in its real form, is not dramatic. It often feels surprisingly ordinary, but it is also, for the person who has been carrying the interior alone for a very long time, one of the most quietly significant things that can happen, because it tells the nervous system something it has been waiting, without knowing it was waiting, to hear, that this is safe, that the feeling is not too much, that the person in front of them can hold it, that the distance between the interior and the spoken word does not have to be permanent. Because people who feel everything but say nothing are not closed off. They are not cold. They are not uninterested in being known. They are people who feel more than most, who carry more, notice more, are moved by more, and who learned, in circumstances that did not give them a better option, to keep all of that inside, to be the witness of their own experience rather than its expressor, to give presence freely and receive it rarely, to live in the fullness of the interior while presenting only the quiet surface to the world. And what they are working toward, what becomes possible in the right conditions with the right person in the right moment, is not the elimination of the depth. The depth is not the problem. The depth is one of their most remarkable qualities. What becomes possible is the sharing of it. The discovery that the interior, that vast, complicated, continuously alive interior, does not have to be carried alone, that someone can hold it with them, that saying it out loud does not make it smaller, it makes it, finally, real in the way that only shared things can be real. And that is not a small thing. That is what connection actually is.